In this video, I will explain to you why starting locks with comb coils is the best method in my humble but 20-year experienced opinion. First, I'll need to explain lock size issues, since comb coils make it easy to get the lock parting sizes right, and that's why I find it to be the superior method. Then I'll be sure to let you in on some tips that will make it easy to get the sizes right yourself, and how to tell when you don't have the size right. But first, check out my new intro. There are a lot of different ways to start locks. The reason why it can be done so many different ways is because of the science. Naturally, hair sheds every day. 50 to 100 strands of hair shed every day on your head. The more time passes, the more hairs shed. As long as the hairs that shed never get combed out, the hair is in the process of locking. The reason compassionate comb outs exist is because sometimes people don't comb out their hair for a very long time for various reasons. The hairs that are still connected to the scalp and the hairs that have shed will tangle and mat together. If a person goes too long without combing their hair, the hair will lock. In the case of compassionate comb outs, it's usually 6 months or more of uncombed hair. This creates a huge matted mess of hairs that have shed that are tangled with the hairs that are still connected to the scalp. This can be very painful for the person, and it is also unhygienic since it's all but impossible to clean the scalp when the hair is matted together. Cleaning the scalp is very important to clean hair since the scalp is constantly shedding skin cells and oil. But this video isn't about that. Well, not entirely. One of the most important tips to creating healthy locks is to create a healthy size, and healthy size locks are typically easy to clean as the scalp is easy to access. But the size is important for many reasons. Getting them clean is a big one for sure, especially since freeform locks and wicks have gotten popular. I'm sure it takes a long time to get those dry on the inside. That's potentially problematic because, again, science. Science says bacteria grows in dark, moist places. If your locks or freeform locks or wicks are too big to get dry on the inside after an attempt to clean them, let's be honest, how do you clean them with such little scalp access? But you can certainly get them wet, and drying might prove to be difficult. If they don't happen to get fully dry in the deepest parts, mold or mildew or some type of bacteria will be growing inside the hair. Those things usually have a bad smell as well. Unfortunately, problems with size don't end there. Since we're talking freeform and wicks, let's start there. Everyone with afro hair has a unique curl pattern. When I say curl pattern, I'm including two different aspects. First, the actual size of the curl, and second, the thickness or thinness, also known as the density of the hair. When you take into account the size of the curl and the density of the hair, you will find a unique lock size. That, included with the shape of the client's head, will give each client a unique set of locks while still following a mathematical template pattern that is similar for each client. With this method, you can find and put the curls in the preferred position. That actually keeps them from tangling with each other and not only helps them lock quickly, but keeps them healthy for a lifetime. But with wicks and freeform, the size of the curl is ignored. The thickness of the hair, ignored. And it's very dangerous because curly hair, aka afro hair, is very strong yet very fragile. It can be stretched to its capacity, but it will also shrink to its curl pattern. If you stretch curls past their preferred position and keep them that way too long, they will snap and break, especially if they have no way to comfortably shrink. Curls that are being pulled too far away from where they are growing at will not stay that way for long. Most commonly, hair strands will break off at the wick or at a weak point. You can look at freeform lock and wick wearer heads and see many short broken hairs around the perimeter of the head and around the perimeter of each wick, and that is the best case scenario. In more tragic cases, the hairs that are being pulled too far will break directly out of the scalp. Sometimes bumps are created that, if scratched, can get infected, leading to permanent hair loss. Or the hair grows back and is reattached only to break at the scalp again and again, leading to permanent hair loss. The scalp cannot withstand hairs constantly being pulled that way. The growth will slow down, and the follicles that are pulled on the most will stop growing altogether after too much trauma. Wigs have a 2 to 3 year lifespan, and that's being generous. Freeform lasts longer, especially if they are regularly separated, but without regular separation, freeform has a 2 to 5 year lifespan. I speak mostly of freeform locks and wicks because that is the most dangerous on the side of locks that are too large. But locks can be too large and not experience as much of these symptoms because they are only slightly too large. They won't have as much breakage or trauma, but the hair will appear to not be very full, and retwist will feel a bit tight. Most times, a fresh retwist will unravel in a day or two when they should stay until the next shampoo. They will also seem to grow slower than normal. That is due to the curl having to travel to the center of the lock parting before spiraling down. I have tips on how to avoid making locks too large that I will share at the end of this video. Now let's talk too small. There are many variations of too small, and there is a threshold for too small locks, just like locks that are too large. When I say too small, I'm usually talking about sister locks, which are being rebranded as micro locks, but they are very much the same with similar problems. Micro locks completely ignore the curl pattern as well. The most tragic part about the way micro locks break is that it is usually after quite a few years of growing before the breakage begins. But when it breaks, it happens in a quarter-size round section at the scalp. I've seen it multiple times. Unfortunately, when something goes wrong with someone's locks, they don't run to share it with the internet. They always manage to find me though. They come to me with a handful of micro locks in one hand and a quarter-size bald spot. A tiny bit of less than a half an inch of peach fuzz left in the spot. This is when I typically advise them to make the remaining locks larger to save them, but there is already a bald spot, and they typically do another big chop instead. What I believe happens is, again, science. If hair sheds 50 to 100 strands of hair a day, what happens when too many hairs shed in one area and the hairs that are left holding on are not strong enough to hold the weight? Let's say you have micro locks that are 5 strands of hair each, and each of them shed 2 to 3 hairs each in a section, and then you happen to scratch the section. That entire section is coming out. That's not even taking into account the sheer weight that mature micro locks are putting on those 5-strand sections. Micro locks have a 7 to 10 year lifespan, closer to 10 if they are kept at a shorter length, closer to 7 if they get past a certain length too soon. Keep in mind that some people have a curl pattern that is so tight and so thick that it can support tiny locks, but that's not the majority of people. Locks can be too small but not experience these symptoms because they are only slightly too small. They won't have as much of the trauma or breakage, but the hair will appear to be too full, almost still afro looking. I call it lion's mane locks because it looks like you have a lion's mane. Most times, a fresh retwist will unravel in a day or two when they should stay until the next shampoo. If the hair gets any bit of moisture, the curl will swell up to its actual size. Locks that are too small will constantly mat together long before maintenance is due. There will be a perpetual frizz that will be impossible to get rid of. The frizzy area shows the true size the lock should be. Once they are fully mature, you will notice the locks look especially large at the ends and super skinny at the scalp. They will give the appearance of thinning, but they were simply started too small. The ends show the size, the true size the locks should be. I had to give you all of this information first because I need to explain why starting locks with comb coils is the best method. Not only does it leave an empty space down the center where the hairs that shed can collect and tangle, allowing the hair to lock naturally and quickly, but doing comb coils in wet hair allows you to get a good look at the natural curl. Starting with Insta-locks or two-strand twists or braids or any of the other methods, while they definitely will lock because you're not combing the hair, it is almost impossible to determine the correct size. That's because with comb coils, the hair will tell you easily and quickly if you got the size correct. You want to observe the size of the curl and attempt to make squares that fit securely around the curl comfortably. When the parting is too big, it will be obvious because before you get too many done, the ones that are too big will slowly unravel and poof up at the scalp. Feeling the need to use a clip to hold it so it stops unraveling is a good sign you should comb it out and do it over, smaller. I try to determine the correct size at the beginning of a row, and once I'm sure, I match the rest of that row to the first one, provided they each stay as well. When the parting is too small, it is not quite as obvious, but it will also seem like you need a clip to hold it. The curls will keep swelling up and covering the partings, and there will be gaps in the curl. You really want to create comb coils that have no gaps. In my experience, when the hair sheds, it tries to escape through the gaps, making lumpy, frizzy locks. A lot of times I will see stylists try to do them over and over again to get rid of the gaps, but all they need to do is make the partings a little bit bigger. So ultimately, the reason why I think comb coils are superior to all the other locking methods is that you can't be as precise with finding the correct size with the other methods. It's always a guessing game. And once the locks start to mature, you can see if it worked or not, and it's usually not, but by then the clients are reluctant to start over. When locks are started with comb coils, it's also easier to make changes to the sizes at the first few maintenance appointments, if any sizes are off a bit. And the very best part about having locks that are the correct size for your curl pattern is that they stay twisted. Retwists generally last from shampoo to shampoo. 4 to 6 weeks is the best time frame for maintenance. And at 6 weeks, when I go to shampoo a client with the correct size locks, the part I retwisted last is still clearly twisted, sitting on a 1-inch cushion of new growth. And when I shampoo, the previously twisted part joins the locked hair, as it is now full of hair that just shed, and only the cushion of new growth is loose, needing to be twisted. There is very little to no loose broken hairs. There is no matting. The parts are easy to find, and that provides a good experience for both the stylist and especially for the client. But most importantly, the hair grows and grows, and the lifespan is up to the client. Locked 5 years or locked forever. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this information useful or helpful in some way. If you know someone that can benefit from the info, share this video with them. And if you can throw me a like, I wouldn't be mad at that. See you on the next one. Bye.